Hey, everybody. I didn't really get a chance to talk about the miracle ending to the game of the Chicago Bears versus the Washington Commanders. And yes, I realize it's Thursday. It's really time for us to talk about the Giants and the Commanders, but let's just get this started. And welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. My name is Greg. I am your host, and I'm setting up my Apple Watch here again. I'd let my wife use it for a little bit because she thought she lost hers. She found hers, so now I get to have mine again. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video is about the Washington Commanders, and of course, this podcast is news and commentary for the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. When you do, also make sure you hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases, just like videos like this one where you see me obviously have just got out of the shower, and so my hair looks weird and wet, but we'll make do. I don't really care. Anyway, what I do care about is what I saw Sunday night, and Brandon Scott, of course, he covered all of this in the video Sunday night. I was sick. I didn't have a voice, and so there was no way I could have done a podcast. But I'm feeling somewhat better, and my voice obviously is back, much to the chagrin of a lot of folks. So anyway, my reaction to the ending, the miracle Hail Mary ending where Jaden Daniels throws that ball. Now it's funny because a lot of people have different ideas of how many yards that ball went. The media says he threw it for like 50 some yards, which is still very impressive. But I mean, he threw it from like his own 35-yard line. So, I mean, that would make it like a 65-yard pass, and it got to at least the goal line, if not, in the end zone, because the scrum was right there, kind of at the top of the end zone. So his pass basically went about 65 yards. And it's funny because, we all heard it. Robo's like, you should put Marcus Mariota in there to throw the ball. Obviously not. Jaden Daniels had no problem throwing that football down the field. It must be some good juju that's going around since we have new ownership. We're getting rid of everything Dan Snyder except for the name. And so it's like a cleansing, and stuff like this usually happens against us, not by us. And so to actually see a game-winning Hail Mary for the Washington Commanders was just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't yell, I couldn't scream. I wanted to because, again, I had no voice. I wasn't feeling well. Um, the Greg that was used to watching losing football started to come out. That sinking feeling of like, ugh, all right, well, I'm gonna have to have this feeling again, and to see that, it was unbelievable. I was having to explain to my son what had just happened because he's like, "What, Dad? What, Dad? What happened?" I was like, "We just won the game at the end with no time left, and we threw up what they call a Hail Mary pass." He's like, "What's that? Is that a bad word?" And I had to explain to him what a Hail Mary was, and so he's like, "Well, that's good, right?" I was like, "Yeah, that means we won the game." So the funny thing, though, is, of course, you head straight to social media to see the reactions, and even days later, Bears fans were so salty, and maybe rightfully so. I don't know, but I don't think that I bookmark any of those from X, but uh, there was one guy in particular, and oh god, what was his name? He he works with the fantasy football, and he's been plastered all over the internet for basically um, talking about how the Bears and Caleb Williams dominated the game, dominated the Commanders, how Caleb Williams outplayed Jaden Daniels. And I'm sitting there like, you have to be a satire parody account because through three quarters, Caleb Williams only had like, what was it, 39 yards, 33, 39 yards passing through three quarters of the game. Now, he played really well that fourth quarter. He turned it on. And I give Caleb Williams all of the credit for that. He brought his team back. Now, of course, one of those touchdowns was uh, Swift, who he scored that touchdown because there's an obvious hold that wasn't called. Okay. Then Bears fans, they are screaming about two holds that they saw on the Hail Mary play. And I'm like, well, okay, but what about the hold on the Swift run? What about the hip tackle on Jaden Daniels from Montez Sweat? I think it was justified. And quite frankly, you're usually not going to get penalties thrown on Hail Mary plays, especially, I mean, because if that was going to be the case, we could argue pass interference. Um, that, of the defenders that were defending Terry McLaurin. I think McLaurin got thrown down there. So, obviously, if you're going to be calling penalties, there was enough. And at worst, if you would have called every infraction, if there was an infraction on that Hail Mary play, then you would have had to have done it again. Now, would it have been successful? It's hard for lightning to strike twice in the same spot. But overall, usually they don't police Hail Marys as much as they do any other type of play. So 9 times out of 10, you're never going to see any holding calls or pass interference calls on Hail Marys. That's just kind of how it is. So, but again, talk about Caleb Williams. Yeah, I gave him credit for that fourth quarter. He played a very good, very strong fourth quarter, but he played like a rookie for most of that game. And you look at the numbers, Terry McLaurin was the better quarterback in the game. He was more consistent. He put up big numbers. Yeah, he didn't, he only had that one touchdown pass at the end, but he had, we had a couple of touchdowns that were called back for what I call ticky-tack calls. Illegal man downfield, which I think was, the Romo and Nance were saying that it was a good call. Maybe it was, but it was a very close, very close. I've seen worse not get called. So they had a couple of touchdowns, the touchdown to Zach Ertz that was called back, saying that he never had possession of the football. It's almost like the oh God, the Cowboys wide receiver Dex. Well, you know who I'm talking about. How they called his incomplete. I remember even years before that, Megatron, they called his catch incomplete, which was an obvious catch. So it happens. It happens. And I've seen worse being called incomplete. But overall, Washington should have won by more than that. Should have never even had a chance for Chicago to win the game. And so I think it was fitting and justified to see the Commanders pull off that miracle. And it really is a statement of um, how much of a new era this is. I never would have thought that the Washington Commanders would be 6-2 right now. I had pegged them to win only 7 games this season. I would have been very ecstatic to have seen 7 games after the season we had last year, and quite frankly, the overall mediocrity that we've had with Ron Rivera for the past 3 or 4 years. So to see them at 6-2 is unbelievable, and leading the NFC East and being like one of the top two teams in the NFC conference altogether is just amazing. I hope that they continue this for the next 5 games. We got some hard games coming up. We got some NFC East matchups against the Giants, against the Eagles, and the Cowboys, and those games are always tough, no matter how good or bad those teams are. So those are tough. Then we got the Steelers. That's going to be a very tough game there as well. So, even if the Commanders go like 3-2 over the next 5 weeks, you still see them at like 9-4, which is far better than what I would have ever expected from this team. So, if they are 9-4 going into, I think at that point they might be going into a bye. I'm not sure. They're getting close. That's fantastic. To be 9-4, and that's 13 games. So you have 4 games left, and even if you split those games, you're 11-6. Is my math correct? This early in the morning, you're 11-6, and you should be in the playoffs with that. Regardless if you win your division or not. So I mean, you can't be upset about that. If they wind up being like 11-6 at the end of the year, you've got fans who feel like they're going to be a 13 or 14 win team this year, and it's possible. Again, as I've always said, it really depends on the injury situation. We were down to our third left tackle, Trent Scott. We're hoping we can get Lucas back, or Coleman back in that left tackle position. And of course, we've had some injuries along the defensive front, John Allen specifically. But how about guys like Johnny Newton stepping up and Fedorian Mathis stepping up? I mean, they played well. And Deron Payne, I felt like Deron Payne stepped it up. He realized he had to. And so I was proud of seeing that defensive line not missing any steps, even with John Allen out. So we're going up against the Giants Sunday. The Giants always play us tough. Daniel Jones always seems to have his best game against us. And so we have to watch. I mean, they played the Steelers pretty tough for most of that game. And so you have to be ready for the Giants. I would love to see Washington coming out of that game 7-2, because I feel like we are going to wind up losing a game. Probably we're not going to lose a game by a lot this year. I've already decided that any games that Commanders do lose, they're going to lose it in the fourth quarter for some reason. They'll let a long touchdown run break through, or receiver's going to work himself open. There's going to be like a late minute field goal or whatever. That I feel like that's how that the Commanders are going to lose any games that they lose going down the rest of the way. I don't think it's going to be any games where it's going to be completely decisive that they were not the better team. So that being said, Bears fans being salty even after that, and I heard all this talk about Jaden Daniels being a system quarterback, about how he got lucky with his one touchdown throw. You look at that, the Washington Commanders they executed that Hail Mary to perfection. They had the two receivers in front, the receivers in the back. Jaden Daniels threw that pass perfectly. He was able to step into the pass. He threw it with a high arc to where there was a chance. It's almost like, as someone mentioned, I heard the other day, might have been Ryan Clark that mentioned it. He threw that pass as if it was a punt. And so you give people chances to catch it. And of course, the ball got tipped backwards into a wide open, all alone Noah Brown, and the game was history. So, Bears fans, they're still yapping about it. You got some that are quiet, but now you got the Giants fans who are yapping as well. And I think we're just going to see this week in and week out until Jaden comes to town and proves them differently, and then you'll hear them kind of back off on it. But I just had to make this video talking about the Salty Bears fans. Come on, guys. I was going to be extremely upset seeing Washington lose the way they did, but I was ready to give Caleb Williams all the credit for his fourth quarter play. He played outstanding in the fourth quarter, not so much the rest of the game. But, when it comes down to when you need it the most, that's when you play your best. So my hat's off to Caleb Williams for bringing his team back and almost beating the Commanders, but almost didn't happen. Take care, folks. I'll see you in the next one.